Ever watch the Why I Go Live podcast? If you haven't, you should. But I want to ask you a crazy question. Did you know that it's possible to record something like this in one take with Ecamm Live Pro? Like intro, the outro, the cold open, the guest interview, with pull-ins and pull-outs and dynamics, all in one take. Like, imagine recording and the show being completely ready to upload when you're finished. Some say it's no editing, but I prefer to say it's editing with Ecamm live. And it requires significant prep work up front, designing every scene to produce the desired end product. It's actually not that hard. It definitely beats editing. And I'll show you my process step by step in the full video. So here we are on my desktop looking at Ecamm Live, and I absolutely love this program. If you want to get a free trial, I'll leave a link in the first comment below, kirkarnugent.live/Ecamm. It'll get you a free trial if you want to try it out. I will say, however, it is a Mac only product, so keep that in mind. The secret sauce to Ecamm, and I share this in my course, I share this in my my series of videos on how to get started with Ecamm right here on YouTube, is the scenes. This scenes window right here, this is where all the magic happens. Everything is housed in scenes, and every scene that you have here has corresponding overlays that goes along with it. And the way that I'm able to do my podcast, right? You can see the folder here, podcast with guest. I'm going to expand that. The way that I'm able to do my podcast is by essentially showcasing in each scene the dynamics that I want to have displayed to those who are viewing. And while a lot of these dynamics are really cool to do while live, it works the same way while you're recording. And so I do my podcasts pre-recorded privately with my guests, and that session is ready to go as soon as we finish recording. So let's dive into that. I start off right here with a blank scene. You can see that on the screen there. That's blank. Then the next thing I have is a scene for myself and my guest. And one of the things I always like to share here is that in this setup, all I've done is created a camera scene. And by camera scene, I mean I've selected camera here at the top, right? So that's a camera scene. And so then I've simply added the plus sign on camera A. So camera A is set to guest one. Camera B is set to me. There's reasons for that. Maybe you might set it your camera A to yourself, camera B to your guest, but you do those guest assignments over here in the camera switcher. Now you have all sources and you can see all your cameras when you're in all sources, but I like to use camera A, camera B, camera C, because that allows wherever I put that camera, no matter in which scene, I can change it dynamically, right? So if I have camera A programmed as myself in maybe 10 or 15 scenes, if I need to shift that, I can just change it once in camera switcher, camera A to my new camera, then it changes in all those scenes, as opposed to having to go through all those scenes and then actually making those changes to the camera. In this scene, I'm really just allowing the guest to get in, get connected. There is a whole interview mode scenario here. I would send them the link. They can connect in on interview mode. That's another really dope feature of Ecamm. You can have your guest come right in to Ecamm. Then you assign your guest to guest one, and then they would show up in this spot here. And they would also show up in this spot here. Once I have them there, I kind of just go through and test all my scenes, make sure everything's good to go before we hit record. This is the scene where we hit record. And you probably saw this right there in the intro of the video, where I had myself and I had Katie Fox, who is actually the marketing director for Ecamm, had her on the podcast. She's got a really dope live show called the VHS Club, which is pretty cool. Anyway, check out the Why I Go Live podcast for that show. But I had her come in, and what I normally do for the format for my show, in the sign up form, I have the guests share with me one of their favorite quotes pertaining to their philosophy on live streaming, and they share that with me. So in this cold open is what I like to call it, right? You don't want to go start your videos with an intro anymore. You want to get right to the point. You want to capture attention. And so this cold open allows me to do that. I literally will hit record and say, you send in a quote that said this. Tell me a little bit about that. And then as soon as they share that, I usually prep them and say, I only want 30 seconds or less. I hit my foot on the Stream Deck pedal, which is on the floor, and that takes me to the next scene, which
live
is
content
my
accounts
intro
for
video.
almost a quarter of
And
global
so that
viewing
kind
time.
of gives you that
Live video
quick
generates
bite-size,
27% more minutes of watch
we're gonna
time
get
per
some value
view than
here.
on-demand video.
But the intro video
Live stream
is something that we've created. It has music to it. It has a design to it, of course, but it also has a voiceover, which is the intro for my podcast. And that intro is what I use at this point. Then when it's finished, I will then begin talking. So let me show you what this scene looks like. In this scene, all your scenes are defined right here. Either it's a camera, screen share, or it's a video. Camera, screen share, or video file. And so you can see that the video file is selected because this scene is a video file scene. There is one more type of scene, and that is the blank. And you can use that to kind of just create whatever you want. But I create this video scene, but then I also add my camera to it because adding my camera allows for my mic to be unmuted. So I just have to, you can see my camera is here. You can see the outline of it because we're in design mode. But I just have to keep quiet during this section. You can notice that my interview guests and Zoom guests are muted in this portion, in this scene, I should say. And all the settings you have are done scene by scene by scene. So if you notice, if I go back to this preview, you'll notice that interview guest is unmuted here. Of course, mine is unmuted here as well. But once we get into the intro,
live content accounts for almost a quarter of global viewing time. Live video generates 27% more minutes of watch time per viewing than on-demand video.
I should say in the
live streaming is a $70 billion industry. What does it all mean? Let's find out on the Why I Go Live podcast with Coach Kirk.
Coming back to the Why I Go Live podcast. It's your boy, your cousin, your nephew, Kirk Nugent, your host, and we're super excited for this episode. Now, notice that it came right to the next scene, and that next scene is me by myself continuing to do the intro. And so what I want to show here is in this scene, pausing the video, that this is set to when video ends, go to next scene. So again, that automated step allows me to keep my hands free. The Stream Deck pedal, again, allows me to keep my hands free. And when I'm done speaking, it automatically comes to this screen where I can say, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being with us today. I start my show with some statistics. So I go to the next scene by hitting the Stream Deck pedal, and this comes up. This scene was designed by doing a number of things. So we're going to actually go through and hide some of these scenes so you can see it come together. So we have our scene here, hosts plus stats, and we have another one, two more there that build on top of the scene that we're looking at now. And so here, what I've done is I've added my lower third. Right? These are overlays that are assigned to this particular scene. I've added my lower third, and you can see that come on screen. I've added a logo in the top right. Right? Oh, that's the wrong hand. All right, over there, you can see the logo is there, and you can see some of my branding colors there: white, black, purple. Then I've added a gradient. I've added a square. This is right here in Ecamm. I just added a square, and I turned the opacity down on it. All right, so that you can see me. So let's get that right. There we go. So you can see me, and because you're able to now see me, and that has its own animation that comes on screen here. You can see it says transition, fly in from left. So when I turn that off, you can see it go back out, and then turn it on, it comes back in. You can still see me behind it, but it is covering the whole screen. And then I just have that top statistic ready to go right there in black text. And I have it also doing the same animation where it's flying in, but instead of from the left, it's coming in from the top. All this is done with Ecamm, no extras added. So I would be able to share that stat with folks. This is why I go live. I can share this stat with folks, and this is simply the same thing, same scene, but in this one, I have this next statistic that comes up, and you can see that here. Every scene, as I mentioned, has its own overlays, and those overlays are set up per scene. And I hope you noticed over here that my interview guests and Zoom guests are still muted in these scenes, because I don't want them talking yet. I want them to be free to talk behind the scenes, and I can see them over here in interview mode, but I'm doing this part of the recording for the podcast by myself. Then I come to this part. That's the final of the statistics. I finish talking. And again, I'm using the Stream Deck pedal, so my hands are free. I'm very expressive, as you can see. Talk with my hands, and I can just do that part, share those pieces, and we're off to the races. Now, this scene, I usually come back and say, here to help us define some of this, understand these stats, is our guest. I do the intro for the guest, and then I bring the guest on screen, and we have some conversation. These next couple of scenes here, main zoom, 4-shot, main, these are all for me to just kind of play around with the guest, right? There's just dynamics that I'm using while we're having what should be or could be a static discussion. So in this main zoom one, you notice the difference as I click between them. This main zoom one, all I've done is go into the camera effects scene, right, which is this one here, and I go and zoom in. You can see how that zoomed in there, zoomed in 22% on camera A, then go to camera B, and again, zoomed in 29% on camera B. I will go and adjust this slightly during the intro part while we're prepping for the podcast to make sure that both of us look the same, both of us are framed up properly. But that's how I set this scene. And when I set this scene, that scene's done, so that when I'm using the Stream Deck to go between the two, it's almost like somebody's editing in post and they're zooming in and zooming out. So that makes another dynamic. Again, one of those pattern interrupts. This is another scene where I've just added camera A, camera B, camera C to the scene, and I've allowed for guest 1 to be there as well, so that I have 2 and 2. And this again is another dynamic that allows to bring that audience member back, their attention back to the screen, because there are things that are changing on screen. This is back to the main shot, and I will kind of dance between those as we have our discussion. And once I've thanked my guests, I will go back to the solo scene using the Stream Deck pedal, and I will end things out. And the next scene is the outro video, and just like the intro video, this one has a voiceover, but the voiceover starts about 5 or 6 seconds in. But it's just enough time for me to say, I'll see you around these internet streets or in the next audio stream. And as soon as I say stream, the voiceover picks up and it closes out the recording, because you can see here that selected on this video is end broadcast. End broadcast is selected for what to do when this video ends. And in the case of recording, instead of ending the live, it will end the recording. And so what happens, because I am yet still on this screen, my guest is muted, I'm here in the corner, but behind the video, I can speak for a second. Then I just got to remember to shut up and allow the video to end. And once it ends, I can go back and finish up with my guest, talk with them, thank them for coming, and I'm done. And can you imagine that will produce a very dynamic podcast recording that I can utilize for my show? Ecamm Scenes is where the magic happens. Did I mention Ecamm Scenes is my favorite? In fact, Ecamm can also record a standalone video while you're live streaming. It's crazy. And in this video right here, I show you how to do that. I show you all the steps. I show you exactly how it's done and what shows I use it for. Click right here to watch, and I'll see you over there. Grace and peace, fam.